Well, hello everybody in BookTube land. Welcome back to the channel, Reading Ideas. And have I got a great reading idea for you today. I've been looking forward to discussing this book. I've probably read it 10 times, maybe more. Bits out of it. It is such a wonderful book. So, what is this book? It is Sun Tzu's Art of War. Okay, now so much to say. Firstly, it is for those of you if you are looking for a quick read. The actual book is about 32 pages long. So that bit there is the actual Art of War. Okay, so 32 pages. 13 chapters. Each chapter is between 2 and 13 pages. So if you disagree with me that it's a great read, it's going to be over quick, isn't it? But it can't not be a great read. Okay, now so many, for such a thin book, so many little aspects to it. Now the first thing is that yes, it's a book on the strategy of war. But it's been read. I mean, this was written in China in the period of the Warring States between 403 and 221 BC. So this thing is over 2,000 years old. It's almost 2,000 years older than Machiavelli's The Prince. But what it's got in common with Machiavelli's The Prince is that this was written at a time of war when China was small states all fighting each other, and if you weren't good at war, then your culture kind of disappeared and was subsumed by your neighbour. So war was. Mr. Sun Tzu can say it himself. Where are we? Chapter 1. War is a matter of vital importance to the state, a matter of life or death, the road either to survival or to ruin. Hence, it is imperative that it be studied thoroughly. From the man himself. So, and Machiavelli's The Prince, that was when Italy was small principalities and they were forever at war, and you had some big empires nearby. Trying to interfere in it, the Italian state's affairs. So again, war was important. In feudal Japan, you had all your daimyos fighting each other for control. So again, war being very important. So Hagakure was written. In Europe, you've got von Clausewitz on war. There was quite a bit happening in Europe, wasn't there? So what do they say? The necessity is the mother of invention. Okay, so that's the kind of the background to it. China was made up of little little kingdoms, and China didn't exist, and they were at war. This was written. Now there's some thought that the Chinese culture is slightly different. That this text was read, passed down, amended from the original text. Right. So how I came across it. I'd kind of, I think I'd heard about Sun Tzu's Art of War. I can vaguely remember it deep in the background of my brain, but never kind of tempted to hunt it out. But I was reading James Clavell, or Clavel, however you pronounce it, Shogun, Taipan, Noble House, his book King Rat, and love those books. And in one of them, I think Taipan, it might have been mentioned in a couple of them, but I think in one of them in particular, the this story of these books is based on, Western Europeans going to the East, and there's a series of generations of this family that run a company there, and how they're linked with politics and the two different cultures, East and West. And I think it was mentioned that this one of these great characters, I think in Noble House, he's going to take over the family business, and he's trained up, and he says his father drummed into him Sun Tzu's Art of War. So I thought, well, I'll check this thing out, and I was surprised and shocked. One, how thin it is, but two, how tightly, beautifully written it is, but how practical it can be. If it can be just read as a historical thing. I mean, something that's that old, written down. Absolutely fabulous insight into into ancient Chinese culture, but it's wider than that. So you can read it for that. But also, if it's great to think, if you are in any kind of leadership position, not just running an army, but if you've got a company, you're running a sports team, you are a teacher, an office manager, then it isn't a gory book. It isn't slaughter this and what have you. It's about tactics, it's about strategy, it's about leading men in war, your resources, how to utilize the ground, terrain. So you can read it, and it's written, part of it, I will read some bits out of it so you can get a flavour of it, but it's some things that are written in it are pure advice, divide and conquer and things like that. So you will get some pure advice, but other times it's quite poetic. So you can kind of, you're reading it and thinking, how can that apply? Oh yeah. So yeah, I'll see if I can't, I think I've got a couple of examples. So yeah, but in my advice is that I would get this translation, definitely this translation. It's the Wordsworth Classic. In Machiavelli, I think it's the Penguin edition that you should get. I've read other translations, and they're clunky, not as, they're trying to have their own translation. And yeah, this to me I've found is by far the most beautifully written one, and you'll see some of the writing. And this one, it's also got a second book, the Book of Lord Shang Yang. Now I'll briefly mention that because I don't think it deserves more, but this is the issue that you will get in getting a copy of Sun Tzu's Art of War. It's so thin, 32 pages, that they always pad it out, so you will have Oxford academic says this. But now this might be sacrilegious, but most of that is rubbish. So I would get this edition, I'd read the 13 chapters, make of it what you will, and then if you want to read the commentary, I'd do it afterwards to kind of, right, so that's why he might have said this, and this might link to that. But most of it is padding, I believe. This one is put with Shang Yang, which is far longer. Just so a quick word on that. The minute that I started reading Shang Yang, I just immediately thought of Pol Pot and Cambodia and what happened over there. Now, Pol Pot, if I make a mistake here, I make a mistake, but I think Pol Pot was Cambodian, got a Western education. I think he went to I don't know if he went to the UK or America, but I think it was definitely France. And you know, he again, I may make a mistake, but at the time, China, Russia were looking to take over countries. You know, you had you had the Vietnam War and places like that. But they were looking to spread communism throughout the world. It's written in their manifestos, you know, workers' uprisings and what have you. So I think he was supported by Russia, China, or both. So he was taking communism back, but I believe he wanted an Oriental flavour in there as well. And I'm pretty convinced that he's read Shang Yang and tried to put it into practice. It basically says how you should run your country is that you should have everybody working on the land. So all intellectuals are a threat. They're useless people. You know, we can argue about that, but I don't think you should make, you know, huge piles of dead bodies of them. So yeah, he went back to his country and just basically wiped out anybody of any intelligence, anybody of any academic standing, anybody. I think they even got rid of anybody who wore glasses because that was a sign that you were studying, and just got everybody on the land. So it's, yeah, you can read it if you want, but that's what you'll get. Just repetitive, you know, or just just repetitive stuff going on about how everybody's got to work on the land and get rid of anybody who's a threat. Yeah. So yeah, it didn't work out too well, did it? Put in practice. So back to the topic that we're talking about, Sun Tzu's Art of War. Now, just a quick word. You know, we had in Western Europe the Renaissance, and quite a bit of it, I believe, came via Italy because of Italy's connections with the East and the Arabic world. So this might have come to us via Italy. I think Euclid's Elements came through. Certainly, Arabic numerals came through. You know, Italy's you know, trade with the East. So yeah, so algebra and algorithm comes from the book Algebra wal Muqabala by the writer Al-Khwarizmi. So Algebra wal Muqabala, I think, translates as on checks and balances, and Algebra wal Muqabala by Al-Khwarizmi. So Al-Khwarizmi was the writer, which leads to the word algorithm. Okay, so yeah, so we probably, you know, it probably came across from the East via countries like Italy. So this book is so tightly written and so absolutely wonderful, and it's just got a funny style to it. You know, there'll be people out there who'll be able to say what kind of style it's written in, like this kind of confident voice. You know, listen to me, I tell you, you know, this, if you follow this, then you will have success. It is really quite nice. Right, so yeah, I'm yabbering on a bit, haven't I? So have I missed anything? Because I really want to do. Oh yeah, so yeah, almost forgot. I mean, this book, I believe, is required reading by, is it FSB now? The old KGB, CIA, FBI. It's, yeah. So the chapter titles. Sun Tzu's Art of War, Estimates, Waging War, Offensive Strategy, Dispositions, Posture of Army, Void and Actuality, Manoeuvring, The Nine Variables, On the March, Terrain, The Nine Varieties of Ground, Attack by Fire, and Use of Spies. It's just amazing. Yeah, so, okay. We'll have a little couple of snippets. Okay, so if you don't want any spoilers of the book, it is quite short, then look away now. So this is a little snippet from Chapter 3, Offensive Strategy. Thus, those skilled in war subdue the enemy's army without battle. They capture the enemy's cities without assaulting them, and overthrow his state without protracted operations. Their aim is to take all under heaven intact by strategic considerations. Thus, their troops are not worn out, and their gain will be complete. This is the art of offensive strategy. So, consequently, the art of using troops is this. When 10 to the enemy's 1, surround him. When 5 times his strength, attack him. If double his strength, divide him. If equally matched, you may engage him with some good plan. If weaker numerically, be capable of withdrawing, and if in all respects unequal, be capable of eluding him. For a small force is but booty for one more powerful if it fights recklessly. Poof, it's just so wonderful. So that's kind of a little snippet where he's giving specific advice. 10 to 1, surround him. 5 times him, attack. But some of it is so poetical. Definitely this is Wordsworth edition. So, Chapter 5, Posture of Army. Generally, management of a large force is the same as management of a few men. It is a matter of organisation. And to direct a large force is the same as to direct a few men. This is a matter of formations and signals. That the army is certain to sustain the enemy's attack without suffering defeat is due to operations of the extraordinary and normal forces. Troops thrown against the enemy as a grindstone against eggs is an example of a solid acting upon a void. Generally, in battle, use the normal force to engage and use the extraordinary to win. Now the resources of those skilled in the use of extraordinary forces are all infinite as the heavens and earth, as inexhaustible as the flows of the great rivers, for they end and recommence, cyclical as are the movements of the sun and the moon. They die away and are reborn, recurrent, as are the passing seasons. The musical notes are only 5 in number, but their combination gives rise to so numerous melodies that one cannot hear them all. The primary colours are only 5 in number, but their combinations are so infinite that one cannot visualise them all. The flavours are only 5 in number, but their blends are so various that one cannot taste them all. In battle, there are only the normal and extraordinary forces, but their combinations are limitless. None can comprehend them all. For these two forces are mutually reproductive. It is like moving in an endless circle. Who can exhaust the possibility of their combination? When torrential water tosses boulders, it is because of its momentum. When the strike of a hawk breaks the body of its prey, it is because of timing. Thus, the momentum of one skilled in war is overwhelming, and his attack precisely timed. His potential is that of a fully drawn crossbow, his timing that of the release of the trigger. In the tumult and uproar, the battle seems chaotic, but there must be no disorder in one's own troops. The battlefield may seem in confusion and chaos, but one's array must be in good order. That will be proof against defeat. Apparent confusion is a product of good order, apparent cowardice of courage, apparent weakness of strength. Order or disorder depends on organisation and direction, courage or cowardice on circumstances, strength or weakness on tactical dispositions. Thus, one who is skilled at making the enemy move does so by creating a situation according to which the enemy will act. He entices the enemy with something he is certain to want. He keeps the enemy on the move by holding out bait and then attacks him with picked troops. Therefore, a skilled commander seeks victory from the situation and does not demand it of his subordinates. He selects suitable men and exploits the situation. He who utilizes the situation uses his men in fighting as one rolls logs or stones. Now, the nature of logs and stones is that on stable ground they are static. On a slope they move. If square, they stop. If round, they roll. Thus, the energy of troops skillfully commanded in battle may be compared to the momentum of round boulders which roll down from a mountain thousands of feet in height. I mean, just how wonderfully written. But if you can't, think of that yourself, if you're a teacher, the ordinary forces and the extraordinary. So I've got a class, right? Ordinary forces. I'll get the work prepared, get them lined up, get them in. I'll get them quiet, and then the extraordinary. I know I'll run a football club after school. They'll love that. It just sets your mind thinking. So really is fabulous. Now, I think I've got a title for this book. So, attack by fire. There are 5 ways of attacking by fire. It's just amazing. And then, this one. So you can imagine, if this has been read by all these spy people, which it definitely has, does it? So, chapter 13, use of spies. So I'll just read a tiny little snippet. Now, when an army of 100,000 is raised and dispatched on a distant campaign, the expenses borne by the people, together with disbursements of the treasury, will amount to 1,000 pieces of gold daily. In addition, there will be continuous commotion both at home and abroad. People will be exhausted by the corvée of transport, and the farm work of several 100,000 households will be disrupted. In ancient times, 8 families comprised a community. When one family sent a man to the army, the remaining 7 contributed to its support. Thus, so hostile armies confront each other for years in order to struggle for victory in a decisive battle. Yet, if one who begrudges rank, honours, and a few 100 pieces of gold remains ignorant of his enemy's situation, he is completely unaware of the interest of the state and the people. Such a man is no general, no good assistant to his sovereign, and such a sovereign no master of victory. Now, the reason a brilliant sovereign and a wise general conquer the enemy whenever they move, and their achievements surpass those of ordinary men, is their foreknowledge of the enemy's situation. This foreknowledge cannot be elicited from spirits, nor from gods, nor from by analogy with past events, nor by astrological calculations. It must be obtained from men who know the enemy's situation. Now, there are 5 sorts of spies. These are native spies, internal spies, double spies, doomed spies, and surviving spies. When all these 5 types of spies are at work and their operations are clandestine, it is called the divine manipulation of threads. And is the treasure of a sovereign. Oh, you can imagine those pesky Russians reading that. The divine manipulation of threads. It's fantastic. And then it talk. Yeah, I won't say any more. But that I'll be reading it at least 10 times more. It's just great. Just pick it up. you can be through it in not much time. But if you've got something on the go, you know, if you're running a club, you'll be reading it and you'll be like, what? Yeah, absolutely fantastic. So, The Art of War, not the Book of Lord Shang, by Sun Tzu, over 2,000 years old and still in use today, for good or for bad. Good reading, everybody.